Trains of Berlin. My name is Joshi, this is Juan Carlos Herken Krauer, and he wanted to talk about Stefan Zweig, and I asked him why.
Indeed, why? That's what many people ask, more or less, especially in some countries. And there's this wonderful article here published in the FAZ, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, some years ago, and in which they also put the question, why Stefan Zweig? Because he says there is no other author who is so kitschy, ladylike, out of fashion, and actually fallen out of the epoch like this Austrian. But his books are massively successful everywhere, throughout the whole world. And now even the Americans are reading him and consecrating him as one of the most cherished authors ever. So it is, you put yourself your question as well, and he is still nowadays in France the most read foreign author in France.
I don't think so in Germany. What I wanted to say is he wrote different themes. He wrote historian novels.
He was a polyphacetic author, so he had many lines. Well, there is his literary ouvrage, his literary work, which consists mainly of novellen, as we said in Germany, plus one novel, libretti for operas, like he also collaborated with Richard Strauss, preparing the libretto for one of his operas. But then he had tremendous success in producing this kind of novel-like type of historical portraits of great personalities, Magallanes, or even the
Maria Stuart. You told me.
Yes, Maria Stuart. This is, for example, one of his
Balzac.
Very successful
yes.
historical portraits. Balzac, Dostoevsky, Charles Dickens as well, and many others. So
there's a heavy train coming around.
Okay, let's wait for a moment. Let's wait for a moment for the train.
This is the Saturday train.
But as I said, this discussion came because some years ago there was this very heavy, very disagreeable discussion in London mainly. It had to do with an article published in the London Review of Books, and then there were replies from The Guardian and some other newspaper. Stefan Zweig was accused of being the Pepsi Cola of the Austrian literature.
I know what they mean. I see this because when you forced me to read the novels of him again. And I'm not talking about the Schach novel. It's called a chess novel, I guess, in English. This is, I think, a little different. But 24 Hours in the Life of a Woman, for instance, is it's something when you read it, it's so full of heart, emotions, and of soul. I felt myself put back in time like a 16-year-old when I was with my feelings not so well and clear. And I guess it's a little hard and heavy to read him because you are really in the stories of him in the novels.
Well, this is a question. I mean, he's been that discussion we mentioned. Stefan Zweig, well, he is a sort of extremely romantic writer.
Extremely romantic.
Sometimes too romantic, and his prosa is overworked, overcharged. A little bit too parfumier, as we said in German. Parfumier, too much perfume in terms of the way the prosa. It probably, yes, some cases may come like that, but the story, we're talking here about his literary work, basically his short novels.
Exactly.
The stories which are told there, whatever criticism you may want to apply to the prosa, what is actually being told remains very much solid,
that's right,
suggestive, interesting. You get hooked by the story. You cannot you cannot go away until you finish.
Yes,
24 hours, like 24 hours in
Life of a Woman.
Life of a Woman, which I think I would like to compare with Damasi Savoshki from Anton Chekhov, so the lady with the little dog. I think it's translated into English. Those two stories the two stories deal with people in the middle of their life, and for whatever reason, then they try to see whether it is possible to build a new life. Regarding that thematic, I think 24 Hours in the Life of a Woman, Stefan Zweig, which I think is a masterwork. It's a masterpiece. As Italians, a masterpiece. As the Italians said, un capolavoro. I believe that that theme, the theme of middle-aged people trying to construct a new life despite many obstacles, they're probably the two most successful pieces in history of European literature. Chekhov, Anton Chekhov, Damasi Savoshki, the lady with the little dog. That is just almost. I thought there is no humor there. That is actually very well conceived. But Vladimir Nabokov said perhaps the best story ever written. And see whether there is still the possibility in midlife. Is there still the possibility of constructing new life? That's a very key point for our epoch about all. And I think that both Anton Chekhov and Stefan Zweig did tackle that crossroad, people at the crossroads. Okay?
Yes, 2 or 3 more bearings you have. I'm sorry, we are on a Sunday here in August. This is the Berlin Dome, and this is the clockwork in full range. Because when you read Stefan Zweig, you cannot read anything else because he's so special writing. And there is, they wrote letters to each other. Joseph wrote the Holy Drinker und Radetzky Marsch und Das falsche Gewicht. He wrote him in the letters, please not so much, not so high, calm down. Stefan, make it a little more simple. And luckily Stefan Zweig did not listen to Joseph Roth. Stefan Zweig spent his time in Wien in the cafes. He was a typical cafe house man. Joseph Roth was more in Vienna. Joseph Roth was more a Gasthaus man and drinking heavy, but Stefan Zweig needed. What I wanted to say is there is rules in these cafes in the 1920s where you have to pay, whether you have to smoke, what you have to do with the newspaper, and I think the writing of Stefan Zweig has some rules also because he gets emotional, but he never leaves the path he is writing. The story goes in front. Where does it come from?
Well, that's the point. I think you mentioned Joseph Roth quite useful. I remember when I was in London, late 1980s, 1980, I had a book with photos for German writers and all. And I saw that's the drama of Stefan Zweig. He had to flee Austria and then the European continent.
Sure, he was a Jew.
He was a Jew. And that was a tragedy at many levels because he is probably the author who in the first half of the 20th century most contributed to making the German language, at least through translation, known throughout the world. And precisely that writer, who did the most for the diffusion of the German language, had to flee his country because he was a Jew. And that's a tragedy, I think it's a tragedy for the German language as well. And I let's hope that the German language would recover from such a blemish, such a stigma. But I saw this photo of Stefan Zweig in Paris, one alone and one with Joseph Roth, because he was also an exile there.
With his moustache.
The photo I saw from Stefan Zweig, I cannot recall having ever seen a saddest face as the one of Stefan Zweig.
Okay.
I think you could certainly, there was no doubt, that man was in the soul, he was already dead.
Murdered in the soul, you said once.
In the Seele ermordet, sagt man auf Deutsch. He went to England. He became a British citizen.
I think he went to Brazil.
No, first to England.
First England.
He became a British citizen.
He
then started traveling with a British passport.
And
so I think he
we would have done the same.
and then he went to Brazil.
Then Brazil.
Where,
aus dem Walde trägt die Nacht, aus dem
But well, that is
I don't think so. I don't agree. I think it is right that he was totally distracted by what happened in Germany, the land of culture, and the Austrians when they got together, Germany and Austria. He couldn't believe how fast the Austrian citizens became nationalists, and not the other way around, because in these cafes was no more longer atmosphere of chaos atmosphere.
I remember this phrase which say that is die Welt von gestern, the world of yesterday. Autobiography. And that he said that he had a villa in Salzburg, and before the Nazis came, his villa was one of the cultural centers of the world.
Really?
Everyone came to visit here. Everyone, meaning Sigmund Freud, Thomas Mann, James Joyce, Arturo Toscanini,
Albert Einstein.
All they went to. He was at the center of the world, and he writes here. This was published. His autobiography was published shortly after his death, and he says, well, when he had to abandon Austria, he said, well, Salzburg, which used to be almost the capital of world culture, is now becoming a provincial Nazi village. And it horrifies him.
Let's go back to the novels. I have one more question, because I have a book with some novels. One I really like is Amok. This is quite interesting what he's writing there. And I would not agree so much to make it in comparison with Chekhov, because I think Chekhov has a little different and more humor than Stefan Zweig. What I wanted to know about Stefan Zweig, where does his writing come with all these adjectives and all these things? What has he done? Traveled so much in the world?
He was first of all he was an exceptional reader, and the only way you can become a good writer is to be an exceptional reader. If you don't read the right books, you're never going to write.
We must underline this so that people know.
He read the authors in their original languages. So he read in French, English, Italian, Spanish, I think also Russian.
Okay.
He traveled quite a lot.
Yes.
Throughout the world. That's why he constructed like the Amokläufe, that novella. We said in German novella because it's a short story which is too long to be classified as a short story, but at the same time it's too short to be classified as a novel, so we call it a novella.
It's not the Schatzinsel, the Treasure Island, it's not.
And I think that's why the characters he put into his literary over, his short stories, reflect his experience as a traveler.
Okay.
He was the man who traveled. He loved Russia, for example. I think he traveled many times to Russia, and throughout Russia, Siberia, including everything. He had a special fondness for Russian culture and Russian literature.
Good fit together.
But this is also Central European, Austrian. That's the Central European German tradition. Like we're talking about him, it's the same with Rainer Maria Rilke, Arthur Schnitzel, Robert Musil.
Robert Musil, the man without any...
The man without qualities. 24 hours in life of a woman, that it begins with a story, and you think at the beginning, well, this is the story which is going to be told here.
Yeah.
The hotel and the Côte d'Azur, they're very romantic, very nice people, everyone dance, everyone plays around and everything, and then
so
boom,
holidays,
and they suddenly
holiday story.
Explosion there of a conflict. That is only the introduction to
yes.
To the main story. The main story is going to come later.
Preparation,
It's very well done because it's almost like an opera. That's the prelude. And the prelude, boom, 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 and it raises the temperature, the level of tension.
I guess this is the idea is to bring us deep into the story and to believe what is in it, because the people in Stefan Zweig's, in the novels, for instance, I asked myself, are these people real or are they a construct only, because there is so much in these people with heart and soul happening that they all seem to explode in their minds.
They're very much real, because Stefan Zweig, he was also a traveler, a very intensive traveler. He
met a lot of
visited
people.
a lot of countries, Asia, Africa, Europe, and met a lot of people, like the Amokläufe.
This story about the doctor. Yes,
it takes place in Asia, and that could have that it could only have written by someone who was.
Sternstunde der Menschheit is about the Turks are in front of Wien.
Yes.
You told me something. He is very liked in Turkey. Stefan Zweig.
He is the most read author in Turkey.
The most read.
The last years, I've seen the list of books sold in Turkey. He's simply the most read.
Yes.
There is no Turkish author which sells more books than him.
It's possible to translate him in Turkey better than in English, or what is going on? I always insist, try to learn German reading.
Because of these two things. It represents an epoch, which is no longer with us, and will probably never come again. And secondly, he had this ability to look into the innermost of the souls, of the hearts of men and women, and reproduce those insights in literature.
I would think we talked about James Joyce when you read The Dubliners. You may not understand every word, but you know The Dubliners is very melodic written.
Yeah.
And Stefan Zweig. Do you agree or what you think?
Yes, he had this musical. It's a prosa which is even the essays. It also shows that there is this rhythm there, which has to do partly with the way he uses the German language. I think, yes, try to read it in German, because translation may be a problem in the sense that the original in German is sometimes already a little bit too over-elaborated.
Yes.
And too over-perfumed, over-perfumed, so to speak. So that if a translation then adds more, then it would become, it's going to become a little bit heavier.
Great translation, only the words, not more, not put more in it of spirit. And this from the Süddeutsche Zeitung, I read the English Joseph Conrad with the German. Do the same with Stefan Zweig. Would you agree?
I agree. But very generous man, we already said that, he had money, and all those who were in need in the 1930s received money from Stefan Zweig. He was always asking anyone, someone exiled in France or the United States and Africa, do you have money and this kind of thing? I can send you some money. Quite a remarkable human being.
Okay, this is Juan Carlos Herken Krauer. This is Joshi. It's a Sunday in Berlin in August 2022.
Italian, Spanish without problem.
Absolutely.
There is a description here. This is the correspondence of Stefan Zweig with his wife, with his former wife, with his first wife. He had some letters to
These
her.
are letters.
He had some letters to her. And there is some letters here describing a letter from Buenos Aires, 30th October 1940. He had to give a conference. There were 1,500 persons waiting for him inside the hall, but outside there were more people trying to get into the hall, and the police was trying to stop these people. So altogether 3,000 people. They had to be accommodated in order to listen to a conference by Stefan Zweig in Buenos Aires in 1940. The conference, of course, was given in Spanish. So it's a remarkable person. The tragedy is, I think, the tragedy for the German language is that he was probably the author who most contributed to the reputation of the German language in the first half of the 20th century, and then he had to leave Austria.
So put the English and the German side by side, get yourself like us under a tree in front of the Dome in Berlin, and Mr. Juan Carlos Herken Krauer has the last word to say about Stefan Zweig. What do you think if he would walk around here, read out of his books. Would anybody listen in these days?
I think there are still people who are able to appreciate the quality of Stefan Zweig, both as a writer and also as a human being.
Wonderful. If you visit Berlin, it's very easy. There is the Hackischer Markt. And then you go here to the Museumsinsel, and maybe we'll meet here. Have a good day.
Have a good day.